Hi, and welcome to Community Voices. I'm AnnaMarie Jones. Candace Gantt, founder of Mind Your Brain Foundation, is our guest today. Candace's story of survival and recovery from severe brain injury is remarkable. Her resiliency is unmatched, and Candace's journey of fighting for and figuring out how to achieve her most optimal point of recovery has become a foundation that supports other brain injury survivors towards achieving their best brain health. Candace, it's such an honor to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's important to start out with why it is you founded the Mind Your Brain Foundation. Can you tell us your story? It is pretty incredible.
Thank you. It was 15 years ago as I was riding my bike on Goshen Road after I'd finished a first half Ironman. So I was out for a beautiful ride in the countryside with a friend of mine, and as I was coming up over a hill, there was a car coming up the other direction. There was a truck passing me, and when he got to the top of the hill, as he was passing me, the other car was heading up his way. So he pulled into my lane, which caused a cascade of serious injuries. I hit a telephone pole, I hit a stockade fence, and then I was back on the road.
Wow.
Thankfully, I had someone with me that recognized I was flailing, I was really challenged to speak. The driver of the truck left, and so she called 911. We were both carrying a phone. I was wearing my helmet, and she was carrying a phone and called 911. And an emergency, the EMS from the local police and firefighting came to see us, and immediately requested airlift to a trauma center, which was at that time at Penn Medicine.
And you were unconscious at this point?
I was unconscious at this point, knowing that it was a brain injury because I wasn't able to communicate at all. And I was, as I fell off my bike, I was holding my head. So those were signals that I was having some serious challenges, a brain injury. When I arrived at Penn Medicine to their trauma unit, they equipped me, still unconscious, with an intracranial pressure bolt, which identifies and measures your intracranial pressure. If it elevates too quickly, it squeezes your brainstem, which controls all of your involuntary, your heartbeat, all of your organ operations, right? So it was shutting down. So they equipped me with an intracranial pressure bolt. And that night, as my pressure elevated so rapidly and so dramatically, it was necessary to have an emergency craniotomy.
Wow.
And that entails shaving your head and pulling back the drum and removing a piece of your skull. So I had this portion, the left-hand side of my skull, removed, which allows your brain to swell, which reduces the pressure in your brain. And from that, I was in a coma for 2 weeks. From that event, that was so dramatic, so severe. After that, it was a long road.
So was it touch and go? Did they know you would make a recovery? Did they think you would come out of the coma, or were they not sure?
Yes, and in fact, they had low expectations that I would recover from any of the injuries. Mostly it was a touch and go that night. My husband was told to call his family and be prepared for the unknown. They didn't really expect it to be a successful outcome.
Right.
And then once I went into the coma, a week after, 2 weeks going through, they suggested to my husband and really gave him the news that possibly would not walk or talk or have any cognitive function. They were watching my brain waves.
As we were talking pre-interview, we were discussing, well, I asked you the question, when you are in coma, is there any, do you recall hearing people speak to you? Was there some subconscious type of something going on?
Yes, and I don't believe there was, because your memory, the brain is a beautiful thing as it's recovering. Your memory is completely limited, if not eliminated completely. But a nurse months later had told me, my trauma nurse, who my husband became good friends with, she was just a joy at Penn Medicine, and had told me that in order to incite and encourage me from coming out of the coma, she would lean into me and whisper in my ear, "Mommy, Mommy." She was trying to reach my inner mothering instincts, because I had two small children at home. I had a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old, and she was trying to reach in and shake something and give me a message that my children wanted me, they needed me.
So do you think that became one of your sources of strength? Was there anything else that helped get you through this?
And that was a major milestone for me, because as I then went to Bryn Mawr Rehabilitation after I had woken from the coma but still was in a wheelchair, I had a trach, so I had a feeding tube and breathing apparatus. But the fact that I didn't know where my children were was a source of my passion for my recovery. Mm-hmm. Who's taking care of my children? Where are they? What are they doing? And that stayed with me until 6 months later, I was able to return home.
Right, that's incredible. And would you say that there were other attributes? I mean, you've always been very athletic, which is how you got into this situation in the first place.
Yes.
And also faith. Would you say faith and your athletic ability helped you to recover as well?
Indeed. I think that my strong faith is really a hallmark of our family. And so we had a lot of prayer warriors that were really pulling for me and had an active role in my recovery. And I think because I was an athlete, I was in good health to start with. So I was really relying on that strength, physical strength, that I wasn't weak. When I could start to walk again, that I wasn't weak. I had an opportunity to be able to always tell people, of my physical therapist, I'm a triathlete. I can do this. I can ride the stationary bike.
Right. And how long did your recovery take overall?
So I was in-house in Bryn Mawr Rehabilitation for 6 months after that. And then another 6 months I was in outpatient.
Okay.
Occupational therapy, any rehabilitation that they offered, I had for 3 days a week, and that was the extent.
Okay, and then as an outpatient, you went for another 6 months, and then where were you at the end of that 6 months?
After that 6 months, then that skull plate needed to be replaced because they had removed it, and so I was wearing a helmet to protect my skull, and so I had another cranioplasty to put that all back together. And so if you don't know, and I didn't know, that they keep your skull plate in the refrigerator at Penn.
Interesting.
And you hope you get they spelled the name right and you get the right one back. And so that was always a thought of mine as I was going into surgery.
Right, you have to find humor in these horrible situations.
Events.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Now, did you feel at the end of your rehabilitation after the skull plate, what was the name of that surgery?
It's a cranioplasty is when they put it back in.
Cranioplasty. Did you feel that you were to your fullest potential brain-wise, or did you feel like you needed to keep going?
Yes, I thought I was released from Bryn Mawr Rehabilitation, and they did a fantastic job. But I knew that I knew I still had some serious deficits. I couldn't be in a crowd. I couldn't decide what to wear in the morning because there were too many decisions. They're talking about executive function, and that's what I was considered, executive functioning. But I really didn't have skills to get through the day and deciding on menu planning. I wasn't driving. And that was the point where I knew, even though I was released from rehabilitation, I knew that I hadn't met any milestones that I considered to continue on with the lifestyle that I'd once known. I wasn't ready.
So, as we were talking, you told me that this is how you decided to approach your doctor.
Yes.
Tell me the conversation you had with him, and how did you fill in those deficits? How did you gather the information to help yourself along even further once insurance said, you're done, we can't help you any longer, you're fine?
Yes, you've peaked.
Yeah, you've peaked.
Yes.
So, first of all, it's a shame that insurance dictates this and not you and your doctor, but that's another story.
Yes.
What did you do after that, and how did the Mind Your Brain Foundation come to life?
Yes. Just knowing that you have not recovered as full as you possibly can, and that was a driving force for me, and so I started to look up I went and searched every website I could, every opportunity I could to do research about other people who had those same injuries but had had a remarkable recovery. And so I was on a mission to find out what else I could possibly do. Was it art therapy, music therapy? I was willing to try whatever was available to improve my aphasia, finding my words. I had, you have emotional irregulation, so I was looking for anything that would help me get to a platform that was stable. And in doing that, I went back to Dr. Sean Grady, who's at Penn Medicine. He's the chair of neurosurgery for Penn. And he and I had, over the years then, it was, I would say, about 3 years after my accident, that we had this conversation, meaningful conversation. I have, Dr. Grady, I'm not where I need to be. And in my conversation, I laid out all the material that I had amassed about recovery. And he said, Candace, this would be a great opportunity for us to have a patient-centered conference for brain injury survivors in your same situation that don't have any hope or don't have any help to get to a full recovery. So he suggested I talk with someone who'd worked for him and works for him still, Doug Smith at the Center for Brain Injury Repair. And so he said, I'm going to point you to Doug, you go and visit him, and then I think this is going to be a remarkable breakthrough for many brain injury survivors in this community to get help.
Wow, that's wonderful. And now, when do these conferences take place? Where are they? And how many people come to them? And where are they coming from? Are they all traumatic brain injury? Are they some minor? How does...
Yes.
What's the population? I'm sorry, I have so many questions.
Yes, that's great. That's great. And so that first year that we started with the conferences, we had 50 people. And we thought, honestly, going in, Penn wasn't really too sure if this investment in the conference was going to be valuable as an outreach to the community for them. And a lot of people were very skeptical about how brain injury survivors know about the conference because of the HIPAA laws. How will they get the transportation to come? Well, as it turns out, we had 50 people the first year, and we were celebrating wildly that we had reached that many people. And then fast forward, we've had that conference in Philadelphia at Penn Medicine for 5 years. And this past year, in 2019, we had 350 people.
Wow.
Which was tremendous. It was it maximized our space.
Yeah.
Which it was so exciting. Now we have to plan for growth for this coming 2020.
It's a testament to the importance of this conference. There are so many people out there who could utilize the information. And what is the information that you're offering to these people that they can't get? It's hard to
in the community.
Dig up on their own.
Yes, yes, and that's the fact. They can't dig them up on their own, and so we asked them to come in one day, and although it might be overwhelming because there's a lot of information, but we asked them to we have 17 resource tables of community partners around the area, rehabilitation centers, cognitive therapies, music therapies. We've had some tremendous keynote speakers, even from the military. We had a brigadier general one year talking about the blast syndrome that they have from a Humvee accident.
Right.
So it really reaches a broad population, and so that's what we try to give, a variety of recovery modalities, because not one reaches one person. I don't have any. I have no skills in, I'm an athlete, but no skills in art and music therapy. Some people respond to that so well. So we try to give a variety of opportunities for people to be introduced to other resources.
Are these resources, the community resources, are they free to the population? Are they subsidized? How does that work?
It's free to the population.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That is what's most important, because if your insurance is exhausted, and as we know, a large part of that population doesn't have vocational rehabilitation, and so this is an opportunity for them free. It's not a doctor's visit. And there's doctors all there. The medical center from Penn Medicine, the volunteers are tremendous. And so physicians, clinicians, and they're all available to talk to.
Wow, that's wonderful. Now, we were talking also about the fact that you want to take this a step further. Can you walk us through what your goals are for Mind Your Brain Foundation?
Yes, thanks. Thanks for asking. So we had a strategic plan. I have some really bright people that are Wharton graduates that are there to help me along this path and this process. So we conducted a strategic plan, a business model to say, is it a 2-day conference? Is it in this community? Is it in our county we can expand to? Is it national implications? Can we take this platform of a conference and transplant it into other cities? And the answer was yes. It has lots, there's a dearth, there's desperate need in our community here in Philadelphia and the suburbs, but also around the nation. We conducted our first out of Penn's umbrella. We decided to, of course we needed to be an incorporated entity and a 501c3 for a nonprofit organization as a foundation. And our first conference outside of Philadelphia was the Mind Your Brain at Houston Methodist Hospital. And that was this past April it was.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really wonderful.
And then we have another one coming up on Saturday, which is the Mind Your Brain at Lancaster General.
Wonderful. And so you'll have a brick and mortar location hopefully in the city at UPenn?
Yes. So that's our next chapter to it, and that is we would like it's such an opportunity to have a once-a-year conference to bring everybody together, and we want to form a community with that. But you need help every day. And that's the challenge, and we recognize that. So we are hoping to have a storefront, a brick and mortar. Not hoping, I think we're on a mission.
Wonderful.
And that is to have something that offers daily opportunities we'd like a cafe. We're going to work on putting a cafe in our resource center, and that would give us the opportunity to vocational rehabilitation and community reentry. Let's put them to work right here in Philadelphia so that they have an opportunity to get those skills, get their confidence back, and then go out in the community and we'll help them find a job and keep a job.
That is wonderful. You know what? Thank God for you, Candace, and your resiliency and tenacity, because you are reaching so many people who need this help and otherwise wouldn't be able to find those resources and help themselves, and they might give up and stay depressed and not flourish and move on. So thank you for everything you're doing to help our community and beyond. It sounds like it'll be a national
we're hoping,
movement.
Yes, for a big movement.
That's wonderful, wonderful. So we talked about the future goals, and can you tell everyone what you did after? So this is just mind-blowing to me. So not only did you start the Mind Your Brain Foundation, you've been busy with that, but please tell our audience what you were able to achieve once you reached your goal.
My new normal.
Your new normal.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So because I was an athlete,
Guys, brace yourselves for this because it just blew me away. Go ahead. Sorry.
And I learned to walk and talk again, and I started to run again, but I had to run with a running partner because everyone was afraid I'd get lost because I couldn't remember where I started. And so it was so many baby steps. And then I got back on my bike, which was my joy. Wind blowing in your hair, I just felt good. I didn't have any memory of the tragedy, and so I had a clean slate. I didn't have any fears. I wasn't nervous to get back on my bike, and I started to swim. And then I read an article in a newspaper article that was in Westchester about a woman who was 50 or 60 years old and had accomplished a great feat to compete in an Ironman competition, which is a 2.5-mile swim, 114-mile bike ride, and a marathon, 26.2. And I said, I can do this. I can do this. And so I started to train, and the more I trained, the more encouragement. There were a lot of people that wanted to support me, and they were so pleased to see that I had made such great progress. They said, I'll train with you. I don't want to do the Ironman, but I'll get out on my bike and walk with you and run with you and guide me and to be my support and my encouragement. And so in 2012, I completed my first Ironman.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so exciting.
Thank you.
To go through everything
It was
you've
a
been
joy.
through and to be able to do the pinnacle of a bike and run and what's the third? Bike, run, and
bike, run, swim. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. It was thrilling because that was my turning point that I felt like I'm back.
Wow.
Feeling good.
So, wow. Thank you so much for joining us today. Your story is incredible. It's one of such, what a comeback you made.
Thank you.
And Everyone, if you'd like to support the Mind Your Brain Foundation, you know someone who has suffered a traumatic brain injury rather, or you yourself have, or you just want to support the organization and help Candace and UPenn reach their goal of having that brick and mortar and going national, please reach out to mindyourbrainfoundation.org. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct, and it's all one word.
Okay,
Thank you.
mindyourbrainfoundation.org. And that's it for today on Community Voices. Until next time.